am so pleased to have Chris Crowley on the show with us today, our new Senior Vice President and Austin Market President at Keystone. With over a decade of experience in community banking, Chris brings his extensive knowledge and expertise to benefit our community and our community bank. As a fifth-generation Austinite, wow, we'll get into that. Chris has a deep understanding of the local and statewide business community and their banking needs. Chris earned his bachelor's degree in business from Texas Tech University and began his banking career here in Austin, Texas. He and his wife, Katie, have 3 young children named Covert, Charlie, and Kate. Thank you, Chris, for joining me. I'm excited for our listeners to learn more about you and your role here at Keystone Bank.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I'm happy to be here and part of the team. Glad to do this.
We're excited to have you. We're rocking and rolling, and I think that I think your addition is a major step forward for our organization as we continue to meet the needs of Austin entrepreneurs, and that's kind of the customer set that you've been banking.
Yes, in
this marketplace for a long time. Tell us a little bit though about your background and how did you get involved in community banking, Chris?
Well, Jeff, interestingly enough, growing up, if you asked me what I wanted to do, it'd be anything but banking.
Why's that?
I had a preconceived notion of it. My dad's been in banking for 40 years, and nothing against him, but I think growing up, you kind of you see your dad and kind of buttoned up in a suit and tie and have a certain vision of what banking is. And I actually interned in the car business in Dallas and realized I didn't want to be in Dallas and didn't want to be in the car business, and asked my dad to kind of help me meet with some different business people in Austin because I wanted to get back and figure out what I wanted to do. And one of those folks was a young banker who I've remained close to through today. And, you know, he kind of shed a different light on it, that it's a relationship business. And, you know, whether you develop those relationships on the golf course or through happy hours or lunches or going on hunting trips, it's whatever you make of it. And to develop those relationships and maintain them. And so it kind of shed a new light on what community banking was, and that the buttoned up aspect is a necessary evil to be a good banker and a good resource for your clients. But it's not all that's there. It's
and some of that's changed too in your time in the industry.
It has.
So you went to work for a community bank instead of a big bank.
I did. I went to go. One of the folks I met with was with a community bank, and you know, kind of hit it off and offered me a job in the credit department. And the necessary evil of the credit started. I spent about 2.5 years in the credit department there.
Where you learn a ton, don't you?
You do. I mean, you kind of get thrown in feet first, especially in a community bank that may not have as structured of a training program. But if you're willing to put the work in and learn what you're doing while you do it, I think it's very beneficial. And also being part of a community bank, you're more involved with the higher ups early on, sitting through loan committee meetings, special assets. We were coming out of the recession, so kind of working through some problems still from there, and just being in the room with people who've been doing it for 30 plus years.
I've always thought was one of the appeal. I've always felt like that's one of the appeals of community banking is what you just said. You really do get to see the entrepreneurial side of the business and what it takes to build and manage and grow and maintain and run one of those. You get to see that, whereas you might not ever get involved in that if you're in a large national bank. Yeah,
and I think that also in large national banks, you kind of get departmentalized in a certain sector from day one, whether it's, you know, you're just doing investment real estate or you're doing professional lending or C&I or, you know, oil and gas, whatever the niche may be. And the thing that I've always enjoyed about working at community banks is that it is a relationship business. And what I've always said is if the relationship's there, you know, we'll try and figure out a way to make whatever deal work that the relationship needs, regardless of type of loan or geographic location.
So really just try to find a way to yes if you can instead of try to find a way to no.
Yeah. And sometimes the yeses are disguised no's.
Yeah.
But at least you have the optics of delivering a deal that's
creatively thought through.
Exactly.
That makes sense for the bank.
Yes.
And for the client.
Yes.
Well, so I was intrigued when we mentioned we were going through your bio at the beginning. I want our audience to learn about this because, quite frankly, I'm not an Austinite. And, with how much this city has grown, it's not often that you meet a fifth generation Austinite nowadays.
That's right. And my wife's from Kentucky and thinks it's weird that I would say something like that.
That's so funny.
But
but it's true. So as a fifth generation Austinite, maybe from your perspective, you said your dad was in banking and you grew up here, and is that right?
That's correct.
And so how do you feel like the local business community is involved over the years that you've been paying attention and following and being a part of it?
Well, I think our economy's changed drastically in just the scope of type of industries we have here. Austin's become such a popular place to live. We've attracted a lot of tech people and industry through that wasn't here 10 or 15 years ago. If it was small, the Dells of the world. But the industry's changed drastically. I mean, back when I was growing up here, it was really, the state, Dell, or you were a professional, whether it was attorney, CPA, et cetera. And now the market here has shifted so drastically to more of a globalized type market with different industries. It's become big, but I like to tell my analogy is that it's a big town, but a small city. It's still relationships and like when my wife moved here, she was applying to jobs on Zillow and all, or not Zillow, but the job sites. And, she was striking out, and I was like, well, you just have to move here and meet with the right people. And it's still a small town where you have
where that still matters and is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing small businesses in Austin today? And then kind of the second part of that would be, how can community banks like Keystone help address them?
Well, I think the big challenge for small businesses in a growing economy in town, they can get kind of lost in the weeds, especially with their banking relationship. I think the value of having a banker and not just a bank is something that small businesses may not have had to deal with Austin being smaller. But as it's grown, the deal sizes have grown. And
you need an advocate.
Yeah, you need an advocate. You don't just want to have, well, I bank with big bank A, but you don't have a banker's number. I think there's a tremendous value to having a phone number direct to your banker if you have an issue or a problem or an opportunity. To have that direct line is invaluable. And I don't know that some businesses have realized that. I think COVID with the PPP stuff was eye-opening for a lot of people. They were able to realize that there was a value to not just have a 1-800 number to call in.
Because we community banks were the ones that they were reaching out to because they couldn't get a call from anybody at their big banks because they weren't big enough.
That's right.
They weren't important enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Community banks did an outsized amount of those PPP loans. I know we did.
Yeah,
I mean, my friends in the banking industry here in Austin and around the country, just community banks really knocked out an enormous amount of those PPP loans.
Yeah, I think we outperformed on a pro rata basis all the big banks.
Yes,
and I think just the growing pains of a city. I mean, things get more expensive. The small businesses that are paying rent gets more expensive, and so they've got to evolve. And a way for businesses to evolve is with a capital partner, whether it's a bank or themselves, and they've got to be able to do it themselves, whether it's retain earnings or adapt their business, but they need a relationship with a bank to help them think through that, and specifically a banker.
So we're not just about banks. We're not just about making loans.
No. I mean,
we're consultants too.
Absolutely.
And friends and confidants and mentors. And sometimes we have to say no.
That's right. But sometimes we also have to say that makes more sense than what I can do for you.
Yeah. And
there's a value to that, in my opinion, that if you're open and honest with your clients or customers, and they have an opportunity that presents themselves that you or the bank can't do better or help in a better way, it's okay to tell them that's that's a good deal for you.
Yeah.
And I think that builds the relationship side.
It does.
More than trying to scramble around and figure out a way to get close and a long no.
Yeah.
As opposed to just a short no. But
How many times have we
deal.
heard that? Just whatever you do, don't give me a long no.
Nothing worse.
Yeah. It's pretty standard for the course for the national banks.
Yes.
So one of the things about community banking I also love, Chris, and I know that that's what draws you and has attracted you as well as we got to know each other before you joined us. But being involved in the community is important too. Not just being a bank for community members, but yourself and your organization being involved in the community. What are some of the community services, more meaningful, conservative, community service projects that you've been involved with in your career here, and tell us a little about those and why?
Well, early on, it was important just to be involved and go into different events and getting to know people within the community. I was involved in an early RMA, young RMA deal. We helped start and kind of get going. That was kind of more on the credit side, which is not my favorite part of this, but so I helped with that, and then I served on a couple local nonprofit boards. But in addition to the direct work with a specific nonprofit or anything, I think it's important to, as a bank and bankers within the bank, not even the bankers, but the whole team, to be involved at representing the bank at different events within the community.
Yeah.
There's some nonprofits that have become close to my wife and I just through friends that have had experiences, and she's gotten involved and been on boards, and we go to the events and help put packages together, raise money, and try and help get the bank to contribute and just be present and part of the community through the involvement of the bank and the team.
It's always amazed me how much those organizations in the community really do appreciate not just the financial support, but the relationship support.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen it where, the bank or a group puts a table together, and then you go to the event and, the table's half filled, and it's, part of the deal is of supporting it is not just financially, but be there and be present and be, work in the room, getting to know people there that have been directly affected by the benefits of whatever
Sure.
organization it is.
That's right.
And I think that's, that as I've, matured, the groups that we've been drawn closer to are ones that have benefited friends of ours directly.
So that's an interesting point of view, Chris. Tell me, so do you feel like that your involvement in the community and those kinds of things, has that shaped your leadership style in any way and your approach to business?
Well, I mean, I think it's a key part of it. I feel like you're always representing yourself and your, in this case, bank, wherever you are, whether it's at the grocery store or at a nonprofit event or on the golf course. And so, I'm always wearing my banker hat in some regards. And so you never know when you're at this event supporting a great cause and you run into somebody or don't, or get an introduction, and they have a business need that they need a banker and not a bank. And, it's a nice plus of being part of something for the better cause.
Yep.
But I think, it has been a way for me to help grow my network and better the brand of the bank.
So you've been in community banking for over a decade now.
That's right.
So it's pretty impressive. How have you seen the industry change and evolve over the years?
Well, it's.
I know we've talked a little bit about some of those things today. I mean, but I think a lot of people don't think banking's changed.
I think
I'd love to get your perspective on it.
I think it's changed a lot, not just in the regulatory environment, which is constantly changing. And I think given what's happened earlier this year is going to change more in the near future.
You're referring to some of the bank crises we've seen with the failures of the banks.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And, it's the regulatory environment's always changing. So it's a constant battle for banks to deal with. And conveying that to the customer can be difficult because it's kind of red tape that they don't necessarily understand. But I think the just the general culture of banking's changed. I think with COVID, it was before PPP madness. It was kind of suit and tie, buttoned up, and you're supposed to have this big office that everybody comes to, and
you're there every day.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the culture's changed drastically, not just in banking, but I think it's become kind of more relaxed from at least a appearance standpoint. Yes. And but also I think COVID, for all the bad things that it caused, allowed banks to realize we didn't need to function on a fourth in Congress
egalitarian system.
Exactly. And so it's been a nice change of pace to kind of have a more modern work environment for banks, and I think it's forced some people to realize that it doesn't need to be the way it's always been.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you on that. I mean, we certainly didn't know and have in our vocabulary COVID and remote work from home when we started Keystone, and then 2020 hit. And then that's when we realized, we're going to have to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
It's not been all bad.
No. And I mean, I've heard it for years, the walk-in business and what it used to be. I mean, if you're in a business development role, you really shouldn't be in your office all the time.
Yeah.
You got to be out
where your customers are.
Exactly. And I mean, some of the best referrals I've gotten have been the random lunches that they have a friend or colleague that
wants to meet you, or they want to introduce you to, and then you match up and you've got a need, and then all of a sudden you're banking them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so tell me a little bit about what are some of the most. What are you looking forward to the most being the new head of our Austin market for Keystone Bank?
Well, I'm just really excited to be part of this. To me, it's a new bank, not just to me personally, but in general. Keystone's almost 5 years old, and being part of a more entrepreneurial environment, it's been a welcome change, and I'm excited to help grow the brand and the market, and just continue to better what y'all have already started.
Well, I think what I spotted when we met you is you just had that entrepreneurial spirit that sometimes you don't see in big, archaic, monolithic businesses like banking.
Yes.
And hopefully you're able to fulfill those itches, inside of a new urban growing community bank.
Yeah, no, it's been real exciting. It's been, I guess, about 2 months.
Is that all it's been?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm kind of getting my feet underneath me and kind of learning the ropes, and
already bringing in all your clients want to come bank with you now when you're over here at Keystone. You've been busy.
I have been trying to get them busy. Over.
You've got a great reputation in the marketplace, and one thing I know, in following your career, is just some of the same people that we know and the customers that I've run up against. If you could ever get Chris Crowley to join you guys, that'd be a home run. We really like him, so we're excited that you joined us. I like to finish up all my podcasts, Chris, with the same question. So I'm going to ask you that same question that I ask everybody else. What's one of the best or most worthwhile investments that you have ever made?
It's hard to pinpoint a specific one, but I think just investing in my family and the community, I think they kind of go hand in hand. I think doing that and being present in both the family and the community have helped me become a better person, a better business person. It's doing the family stuff. You're at, sports all the time, and half the time, a client or somebody I've been introduced to has a kid on the same team, and being part of that and being part of the going to the events and the nonprofit stuff is I mentioned earlier, it's for a great cause, but there's also a side benefit from being there of bettering yourself and your network and being around people. Obviously the cause is the important thing, but there's you get added value aside from just benefiting a great thing, and just continuing to be willing to learn and adapt. We mentioned it earlier, the banking industry continues to change. I think Austin's going to continue to change. We've doubled in population every 20 years since the beginning.
It's exciting.
I remember my granddad, before he passed away, would just ask me to go drive him around town. And I never understood it. And then I look up, I've been back for almost 15 years, and the city's changed a bunch in that time. And he was born on Pease Road in 1921. So I can't imagine, looking what I've noticed in 15 years, what he noticed over that timeline.
Unbelievable change. I think it's going to keep changing. Seen a little bit of a slowdown lately, but boy, it's been pretty stratospheric growth here in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, the slowdown's been here, but I think the continued net migration is going to
just continue,
help push us through that, and the businesses and people continue to want to be in Texas, in Austin, and specifically Austin.
They do. It's an easy place to live and work. It's easy to get around. People are pretty open here.
Yeah, as long as you're not driving up and down Mopac at 5 o'clock, it's
or I-35 ever.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Right, we do have our fair share of problems, but they're not as bad as some other cities.
Oh, absolutely not.
Chris, I just want to thank you so much for joining us on the Keystone podcast today, and welcome you to our team and to our listeners and to our community bank.
Well, I appreciate being here, Jeff, and I'm happy to be part of the team.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Banking on Community from Austin, Texas. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, would you let us know? We'd love to hear from you. You can come into one of our branches and share with us what you loved about today's conversation, or reach out to us on social media. Community banking is about solving problems, not just for customers, but for neighbors. If you know someone in our community that would benefit from this conversation, please share this podcast with them.